Okay guys, welcome to our legendary banner impressions for real this time. Unlike yesterday. This is covering December. Oh no, did we just get okay, hold on. Are we okay now? Is voice good? Microphone okay? Oh, that was good. Alright, we're back. Welcome to legendary banner impressions of 2018, the final one for this year. I predicted 10 out of 12 on this banner. I missed Veronica and Hellbindi, but actually predicted every other unit on this banner. So that's crazy. And I wasn't expecting to get so much there. Azura was one of the legendary heroes I did mention as a possibility. I'm not surprised by it. Honestly, it was to happen at some point. But yeah, definitely some good stuff. I predicted most of these, so it didn't come off too much of a surprise to me. Happy New Year to you guys that are enjoying it really well. And apparently Happy New Year from Intelligent Systems, because we got some meta-defining stuff happening. This is legendary banner impressions for real this time. No gassed memes this time. We're gonna look what we can pretty much summarize in this video, which we always do if you're new to legendary banner impressions. We look at the brand new legendary hero, the skills, not the stats. I do a separate video on the unit itself and what type of meta implications regarding its stats or builds that you may want to see on that unit. That'll be covered probably in tomorrow's video or the day after. And we'll look at the banner itself. We'll look at the units on every color. I'll give you my rundown of what every kind of color provides. And then we'll go through the mathematics at the end and kind of summarize whether you should pull. That's pretty much it. Let's jump into it then, shall we?
The path is yours to climb, but I'll help you on your way.
Okay, cool. We got a very different looking Azura. I honestly wasn't expecting something like this. I think in her promoted form, she's not been like this, and I think in Fire Emblem Warriors, she didn't even have something like this. This is pretty different. Yeah, someone may ask what my impressions on a new ult of Azura is. I'm not that disappointed. You gotta look at this objectively, and this is gonna sell pretty well. Azura is a fan favorite. She makes money, so this is not a surprise to me, and you're not gonna hear me complaining about it. That's pretty much my take on Azura. Also, this ult, at least from like her art, looks pretty good. And if you consider the other like baby Azura that got released earlier, I don't even consider that like an alt at all, because if you consider like the little Azura an alt, then that's like comparing young Tiki and adult Tiki as the same character. I think they're just separate characters. That's my opinion on it though. You can feel free to have your own. I'm not too upset by an Azura, another one. She is a blue tone flyer, which honestly is starting to become the most saturated mage flyer class. We have Bridal Ninian, some are Camilla, some are Corrin. So I think those already we have like 3 options there. So by now you probably have a blue tone flyer. However, blue tone flyer is good. I mean, for a legendary hero, that's definitely good. The only other tome legendary hero we've had is actually Gunthra. So that's setting a new standard there. She is a water hero, and that's immersive and provides resistance. So that's pretty cool, but really useful as well if you're playing in like Ether Raids. However, the problem of course is that you can't bless her, and that's her weakness. All right, here's our new skills, and boy are they a doozy. Let's look at what we know first. First of all, we have aerobatics and attack tactic. Attack tactic is fairly common now. It's unfortunately not a seal. You can get it off Legalt, but you're not going to fodder her for that. The more exclusive fodder here that she has is aerobatics. I think this is actually a great skill. Really good on something like Ether Raid's defense or even arena defense. And even if you don't use it in that mode, PvE content can really work out well if you're going to use her in a mixed team comp. This is a good skill. I think this is kind of like a sleeper skill and definitely worth foddering for if you want to create some crazy things. Now, I don't think you should fodder Azura for other reasons we'll talk about in a bit, but if you're going to fodder for aerobatics, you might want Flying Nino instead. Blue dual flying is introduced here. If you're not familiar with the dual skills, this pretty much means that you can place this onto your other blue your other blue flying characters, specifically like Katria, Shanna, Est as some examples, Sugar Ray. These are all units, and of course that is the primary thing to fodder Azura for if you care about arena. This will make them score a lot better. Unfortunately, it's limited to a legendary hero, which makes it very difficult to pull for. Sniping on legendary banners is always something difficult if you don't come prepared with hundreds of orbs. And when I say hundreds of orbs, I mean literally like 200 orbs to get, on average, 1 copy of units on these type of banners. So if you're pulling for blue dual flying, be very careful about how you jump into these banners if you don't come prepared with the orbs needed to get it. So it's kind of a little bit, I'd say, of an inconvenience that they decided to do this, especially for those of you that have flyers that are blue and you really love them. I just think in the future, this kind of hints to me that they'll make these skills more available, because it just seems really unfair that a legendary hero carries a dual skill and then like someone like Hellbindi doesn't, and Hellbindi's way easier to pull for on like a two focus banner that we had recently, or even his debut banner, which was also like that. Alright, let's jump into the meat of this. Prayer Wheel and Gray Waves. So I think it's important that we look at Prayer Wheel first. It's pretty good. So it has the speed 3 buff to her. We already know that Azura is generally a fast unit. All her variants have been fast. So she's going to be, I can predict already she might be the fastest blue tone flyer that we have. And this is the interesting part. So if she uses Sing or Dance, she's going to grant a bonus to all stats, depending on what the highest bonus that ally already has. So they give an example. Thank you for the example, IS. If they have a 6+6 bonus to attack, they're going to get 6 to all stats. That's really good. So if you look at attack tactic, it already has synergy there. You dance a unit, they get 6 to all stats. Think of it like a super buffed version of Scald or Urder, the original like dancer legendary weapons, so that's really good. However, it does have the same weaknesses that those weapons had initially, which was, well, it doesn't really work at the start of a turn. So if you're depending on this sort of thing, let's say on a Blade Mage wants to be buffed, or let's say Levitine wants to be buffed at the beginning of a turn. They don't want to be buffed after a dance, or you're not utilizing them properly. So I don't think this isn't like the ultimate weapon for a Blade Mage, because you're not really using a Blade Mage properly if you're not buffing them at the start of turn. And if you're already buffing them at the start of turn with crazy buffs, then you're not really maximizing the potential of this weapon. This type of weapon is better used with like tank units, or units that utilize all stats really well. So if you plop like a Surtur, well, he wouldn't really use the speed well, but you get my point. You pop it onto a tank unit, they get a bunch of stats, and they sit on a tile and collect your free win. That's how I think these weapons are best used, the same way as Urder and Scald was used previously. That doesn't mean it can't be used with the Blade Mage, but it's not going to be as useful. It's just in the beginning of a turn. Okay, and probably the most meta-defining skill we've had in the game for a long time. I think our previous one was like Future Vision, which really really is good in the meta, and Legendary Lucina isn't common enough for it to matter, which is why I think Azura isn't going to be as that common either, because sniping on legendary banners or pulling for it is just difficult, and Legendary Lucina should just be more common because she's difficult to handle. So Gray Waves. Gray Waves is a dance. That's not a surprise, but it is a super dance, and we kind of expected this to an extent. What Gray Waves does, to summarize it, is pretty much if you dance an infantry or a flyer unit, they get it to move an extra space. That's huge. That's really huge. It'll make a lot of content easier, and it will also make it difficult to play against if you don't understand how AI mechanics in this game work. So if you're not playing at a top level, you will probably get wrecked by this skill many times. So that'll probably be frustrating, but as I always say, just play better or understand AI mechanics. The resources are there. I have tons of gameplay footage on the channel. You should definitely check that out and educate yourself on the commentary I do on how to play it. I can make AI videos, and I probably will at some point, but the gameplay I have collectively on this channel can really show you how you can play against dances. And that's really what it comes down to. Being able to predict how a dance will happen, you play around it, and then you win. Because all of the mechanics in this game are predictable, and that's just going to be an inconvenience, really. From a player perspective, it'll be pretty good, especially combined with Prayer Wheel. The best users, I think, of Gray Waves are definitely going to be units that are hyper offensive. So especially on something like Aether Raid's defense maps. So like Legendary Lucina is a good example. Ophelia with a special charge, or Lilina with a special charge. These are going to be big monsters and big threats to deal with on Aether Raids, and if you can't predict those defenses, well, you're going to get smashed. And that's probably why it's going to be frustrating for a lot of people, but it's not. As I said, it's an inconvenience, and just play around it. I think it's a cool weapon. Like, it's not even a tome. It's kind of like a staff that blows water. Okay, so we got Fjorm, Scattered Fangs Nino, Legendary Hector, Summer Takumi, Summer Camilla, Summer Young Tiki, Veronica, Legendary Marth, Flora, Hellbindi, and Air. Okay, so that is collectively a really good banner. Actually. I predicted 10 out of 12 on this banner. I missed Veronica and Hellbindi, but actually predicted every other unit on this banner. So that's crazy. And I wasn't expecting to get so much there. Azura was one of the legendary heroes I did mention as a possibility. I'm not surprised by it. Honestly, it was to happen at some point. But yeah, definitely some good stuff. I predicted most of these, so it didn't come off too much of a surprise to me. Veronica, Veronica's good here. But the point is, let's try to summarize the banner overall. It's good. It's really good. Every single color has some value here. So rather than kind of like going through them here collectively, I think this banner is one of our best legendary banners we've had in the longest time. Literally the longest time. It ends off the year with a smash. But there is a thing to consider. The banner does last up until the 7th of January, which means it's going to overlap with the new Special Heroes banner. And since it overlaps with the new Special Heroes banner, this means that you should play this a little bit smarter. Like, you shouldn't necessarily summon for these units on day one, because if you want to make a good decision between this banner and the Special Heroes banner, you should see your options together between this banner and that. Not to say that this is a bait, it's the value is still going to be there, as legendary hero banners always have been. 8% collectively through these focuses, especially when you want all units of a particular color, ends up being really good. But let's look at everything together and kind of summarize what I think every color can give you, and you can make your decision based on that. Okay, so we'll go through every color individually. In red, we have Legendary Marth, Flora, and Summer Young Tiki. I think the biggest loser probably from this is going to be Marth. Marth, unfortunately, is a fire-blessed legendary hero, and that's not so good, especially when he's in red, and you consider that green has Legendary Hector. So what does really Marth provide? As a combat unit, he's pretty much like a better Ira, I guess, because that's kind of what like Fire Emblem does. And that's the extent of it. His fodder is Infantry Flash, which is a decent skill, but that's pretty much all it is, a decent skill. So you don't necessarily need Marth for anything other than just blessing your other heroes, and that's really the extent of it, or buffing them in a way that's pretty useful. But that's really it. And so Marth has Infantry Flash, and he's not really a desirable legendary hero to merge. I don't really recommend that. So he's kind of like the biggest loser of the three reds. Summer Young Tiki is a good unit, a very good preference weapon, holding Steady Breath on it, being a red flying dragon, which is unique to her still. And of course, having attack defense bond as fodder is decent. It's not really the greatest, but it's not bad. I think actually the coolest unit on this one, the red pool, is actually attack res solo on Flora. So there's a lot of units that can use this really well, and especially in something like Ether Raids. If you can't really rely on bonds, well, you can use solo skills, and solo skills can still be combined with drive skills and give you really big oomph for your value there. Solo skills give 6 to both stats on both phases, and they're really good. Now, additionally, it's also a really good skill on Ether Raid's defense, which is overlooked a lot. Units AI tends to overextend and attack by themselves, so attack res solo is really good there. I do think attack speed solo is generally the better thing, but that's not to say that Flora, a lot of units can't use that pretty well. Next up is blue, which holds 2 water legendary heroes and Summer Camilla. So, man, this is quite a doozy. I personally pulled for Fjorm when Fjorm was sharing with Harden and Winter Robin, and this is actually better. This has beaten that. I thought that was really good value, but this is even better than that, unless you cared about Bold Fighter and Armor March, which was still pretty good value, but this is ridiculous. Now that Blue Dual Flying is here, if you have tons of orbs, and I'm talking like thousands of orbs, and maybe even as somebody who's just starting out the game, if you're to dump all your orbs in blue here, you get yourself a huge advantage in Arena and Arena Assault in the water seasons. Like, you start off with merged 2 water legendary heroes like this, and you're set. You're good to go. especially since one of them is a dancer, already comes with blue dual flying. Camilla is probably the biggest loser out of the blue pool, but she does have Juicy Wave, which is going to make her completely redeemable. Juicy Wave opens up incredible builds for a lot of blue mages that can use it well. It's like somebody who's fast, it's Desperation built in, opens up a B slot. You can combine it with Brazen Attack, Res in the Seal. You can give, like for example, not Legendary Lyn, but the Armored Lyn can use Bold Fighter combined with Juicy Wave, Brazen Attack, Res to really do some crazy shenanigans that way, lots of damage that way. So Juicy Wave can be used on a lot of units like that. And it can also be fodder that you can hold on to in the future. So again, really good unit. A standalone, she's also really good. It's one of the, if not the best blue Blade Mage, at least until we see Azura. So Fjorm, Shield Pulse, still an exclusive skill, Attack, Defense, Bond. We have blue dual flying, aerobatics is amazing, Juicy Wave. Like blue is really good here. I'll summarize all of them at the end to kind of give you an order of preference, but I think for an arena perspective, blue is dominating here by far, even more than this one, which has Hector on it. And we have aerobatics here again, Swift Sparrow. I'm not a huge fan of Swift Sparrow. If you're going to fodder Nino, it should definitely be aerobatics. Hector has Distant Counter, which is great. He's got Vengeful Fighter, which is also really good. And we have Hellbindi here, who has Infantry Pulse and G-Duel. So in terms of fodder, I think green is the biggest winner for sure. You got something amazing in every single thing. Nino is kind of like the Myrrh of the previous banners. And I think, I don't really remember who the one that was sharing with Hector last time was, but I think it was also kind of not as great. Hellbindi is like the replacement for Brave Ike here, came with like Steady Breath. And yeah, I think Hellbindi is even a better choice. This is still really good for arena scoring, like G-Duel Infantry and Hector, and of course the value you get out of green is great. This is a secondary really good option, but in terms of fodder, green seems to be the biggest winner. Now, this one is probably what I call the Ether Raids choice. So, if you take Ether Raids seriously, this is the color you're going to pull for. So, Air is really good for Ether Raids, obviously. She gives you additional score, every merge counts. She's going to really dominate a lot of that stuff. You need 2 airs with 3 blessed units to get 60 lift per match, and then additionally every merge you add gives you an additional point, and those could add up, but generally speaking it's kind of like Legendary Heroes. You add merges, you give yourself a bit more score to work with. Veronica is a really good unit on defense, especially invested, and that's the part I want to really go for. She invested a plus 10 Veronica, like plus attack or plus speed. You running like attack speed solo or attack speed push can really dominate a lot of matches, buff up your team, create some, like she's really hard to deal with for a lot of players, so you can get yourself some easy wins that way. And finally, Takumi, probably the strangest pick here, but again, really dominant in something like Ether Raids. And the reason for it is because Fishy Bow can be set up on Ether Raids. You can have bolt traps. You can rely on maybe a bolt tower on the enemy team. You can't really rely on that, but you know, maybe when it's a bonus structure, you can set up Fishy Bows on a defense team with your units being knocked into low health ranges and create yourself like a makeshift Brave Bow. And that can also open up your B slot to crazy things like Escape Route, Fishy Bow, you know, like those things are so if you're looking for Ether Raids dominance, Colorless is the thing here. Overall though, even for fodder, you got Air with Mystic Boost, which is a great fodder option, and Veronica with Wrathful Staff or Close Guard, both really good options. Overall though, let's summarize them. I think for sure the best thing to pull for here is going to be either blue or colorless. Blue if you're caring about arena, with colorless being the Ether Raid option, so like equally as useful and in terms of endgame content, of course. And green is slightly below, honestly, like arena in terms of arena, slightly below, but it definitely wins out in terms of fodder. So if you're looking for like the best fodder, green should be at the top. But if you care about arena, then you go for blue, with green still being a good option, and with colorless being your Ether Raids pick here. So the biggest loser then obviously would be red. Unfortunately, red doesn't really provide much. Attack Res solo seems to be the only thing that really stands out here, or if you just like these units. So to rank them, red is kind of the biggest loser, also the hardest to pull for, and blue is the top if you care about arena. Green about equal, but has the best fodder here, and colorless is kind of like the ether raids option. Even for PvE content, I do highly recommend colorless as well, or green. Both will do really well. And blue is no slacker in this case. Overall, this banner is amazing. You can get something out of everything. Even the red is not really that disappointing. It's just comparatively speaking, it's pretty disappointing. Let's take a look at the mathematics. So if you're not familiar with the mathematics, green is generally the easiest to pick up focus units from. Keep in mind, don't walk into these legendary banners trying to snipe. So Azura is like the pretty new toy here. And if you're going to summon for Azura, blue is going to cost you anywhere from about 200 orbs on average to pick up a single copy of Azura, with the 90th percentile being close to about 443 orbs, as you can see in the graph shown beside me, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, the beauty of legendary banners has always been you get tons of 5 stars. So if you snipe for a color, that'll end up being better for you than sniping for a particular unit. So for example, that's why I say green, blue, red, and colorless, and don't talk about particular units when looking at these legendary banners. You should walk into these thinking about the colors rather than the actual units. So if you're happy with what blue provides, summon for blue, and you'll end up with like really desirable results. Green, again, is the easiest, and that could be really good for you if you don't have a high amount of orbs. Don't jump into red though. Red is the hardest in contrast. Red can be taking almost up to 500 some orbs, with the average being the highest of any of the other colors. That's kind of to summarize it. I do recommend taking a look at the chart on the side. Of course, my Discord server in the description below has this information there as well. You should jump into it and definitely ask some questions there if you want some good feedback as well on what you should do. To really summarize the banner overall, I think it's one of the best we've had ever, and you should pull. There should be something for everyone here. Personally, I won't be pulling because I've already committed to a +10 air and I already have a +10 Furum, but if you're not that ahead of the game, you can find something for everyone here, whether it's favorite units, end game content, whatever you're really looking forward to. You can kind of take my summary and hopefully put that to good use to make your own decision. What I should say though is you should not pull on day one. That is not a good idea because it overlaps with a special heroes banner, and the exclusive units there or exclusive skills could really impact the game even more so than this new Azura might. So that pretty much covers everything I want to say. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course I'll see you guys tomorrow for an Azura specific analysis. Thanks for checking it out. A new player's guide should also be coming, and some other cool stuff. Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Peace.